You're watching the Carolina Weather Group, a whole new episode coming up next. Well, good Thursday evening, a special edition of the Carolina Weather Group. I'm Scotty Powell, joined with Jared Smith from Charleston, South Carolina. And Jared, it has been a very busy week for folks along the South Carolina coast, including you and myself. And that's kind of what our show is going to be about tonight, kind of recapping the nor'easter / storm without a name / oh my gosh, this is probably the biggest weather event we've had all year event that's taken place in the Carolinas. So, Jared, I know you guys got rocked in Charleston with some record flooding and high tide. And here in Myrtle Beach, we had pretty significant tornadoes. So let's kind of jump into it tonight. And since we're closer to the storm first, let's get your thoughts. But before we do that, we are live streaming, so if you want to drop a comment and kind of let us know what's happened in your area, we'd love to see your comments. And I think a little later on, we are going to kind of give you a travel cast as the big holiday season is coming up. So if you have a particular area of interest here in the Carolinas you may be traveling to, shoot those to us too, and as well, and we can kind of help you out with that forecast. But Jared, it's I'm glad we had some quiet weather between now and last Sunday.
Yeah, I'll take a freeze anytime, honestly, compared to what we just had. Whoa. I mean, where do we get started with this thing? There's so much. I mean, I just don't know where you get started with something like this. I mean, this was looking bad days out.
Yeah.
And I think at first, rightfully so, we're like, is that real?
I remember a week out, I was on air and it was featuring the Sunday. And at that point, I bet I think 30% chance of rain. But I mentioned, I was like, we have the potential for it to be a big storm. The global models are kind of battling one another on the exact track and who sees what. But it's like, we need to keep an eye on this because it could definitely cause some issues for the Southeast coast. And lo and behold, it did.
Yeah, I can't, it did in ways that I think that a lot of us were not, I don't want to say not expecting, because, anytime you have a sub 1000 millibar low, extratropical low, you got problems, right? I mean, just in general, you have a sub 1000 millibar low, you got problems. But it was very, very, very impactful. I mean, I'm not sure, what was the mood like in your weather office? I'm really curious about this. Like, what was the mood like in the weather office where you're at, leading up to it?
It was funny because I guess the global models maybe picked up on this a week and a half ago before it happened. And you're just looking at it, but you look at that far out and you're just like, you got to take it with a grain of salt, with anything, any time of the year you have to take it. But as it was getting closer and closer, both models, long range models that we use were kind of just spinning this low pressure up. Obviously the track and the path and all that was kind of here or there, but both of them were pretty set on. It looks like we could see a pretty significant storm system. And then as the week got going, Monday into Tuesday, you start to not hype it up, but your attention starts to get more focused on what's going on. And, by Wednesday we were talking impacts, and this storm was totally about the impacts. Jared, if this had been August, September, probably would have been a nasty hurricane moving through the area. But, thankfully it was a cold core storm, and we didn't have that tropical aspects. But even the outcome of the events were very tropical-esque, with tornadoes and storm surge and flooding and high winds. And, which is funny though, because, we're in this El Nino phase coming out of La Nina. And those water temperatures, we've talked about it. They're just not cooling as fast as you would like. Now, obviously the shelf waters, yes, they're cool. But
Yeah.
You don't have to go far out into the Atlantic to still see some warmer water temperatures. And you're just like, man, And then you have that question like, dude, if we had some cold air, this would have been one heck of a snowstorm.
There was no cold air anywhere.
No.
I remember Tomer Berg was sharing some models on Blue Sky and X and all over the place, and he was like, "This is a great snowstorm, except there's no cold air. All the cold air is literally in Canada. Like there is no cold air whatsoever with this thing."
Yeah.
I mean, that in and of itself was kind of incredible. December nor'easter should have some snow with it. So that just, I mean, again, kind of owing to the El Nino pattern, kind of owing to the fact that, yeah, it's been a lot warmer than normal overall, especially the last few months.
Yeah. And, I'm sure, assuming in Charleston, the same thing here, but that Saturday night, you could kind of feel the ick factor. You can kind of feel the humidity ticking up, and you just kind of felt it getting warmer and warmer. It's like, man, this is that warm air. And then we'll get into it a little bit later, but as the day unfolded from Saturday, from Charleston County where you're at up to Horry County where I'm at, you just saw this consistent band of just like heavy rain set up, and you're just like, this is not good.
Yeah, I've got a great loop of that here that we're going to show you all in a few minutes. Just to, I mean, some of the rain totals out of this thing were absolutely bonkers. Scotty, to your point too, it's like, oh, we could have been dealing with a hurricane. I don't know how it would have been any different, except it would have had a name, and maybe more people would have taken it seriously. I'm really not sure.
This was a hard storm to message, because had it been named, people probably would have been paying more attention to it. And, on air, and I know with what you do at Charleston Weather, mostly of our job is forecasting, but also trying to communicate those impacts. And I just kept saying, and it may have been the right thing to say, may have not been the right thing to say, but I think it at least got people's attentions. Like, treat this as a storm with a name. Even though it doesn't have a name, you're going to see the impacts from this like it does have a name, and should I have done that? I don't know. That's for social scientist people to figure out. But I felt like that was the best way, or the most effective way, to get people's attention. Like, you needed to take this storm serious.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the impacts, I mean, we exceeded Matthew here. We almost beat Irma tide-wise here. I mean, I've got all the graphs and charts.
Yeah, fourth highest here in Myrtle Beach at the Spring Lake Pier. Matthew, obviously one of the bigger events. I would have to look at the specific storms, but I mean, the fourth highest on record, and this didn't have a name. It was just, just a December storm. It was just those impacts that really caused chaos on the South Carolina coast.
Let's chat about some of these impacts. I've got some photos on the screen right now. This one, so throughout the day, I was getting photos at my Instagram, my Twitter, X, whatever you call it, Blue Sky, Threads, however many sites there are now. There's so many sites. This particularly stood out. This is from Captain Kathleen Saunders. She works on a variety of marine things in Charleston, and sent this picture of the marina here. I don't know what of that is salt water. I don't know what of that is fresh water. It's really hard. It's hard to tell, but you can see how deep that was getting already. Here's a photo from Wentworth Street downtown. That car is pretty well submerged. Trash cans floating there. You can see the height of the water to that fence line. Here's the Isle of Palms Pier. The Isle of Palms Pier, where Shay Gibson from Weatherflow, he's got an instrument out there. Unfortunately, the instrument was okay. You can see it kind of just hanging in there in the corner there, actually. But you can see that the pier took a major hit. This is James Island. This is a dock that's completely underwater. This is from Emily Koppel. This is the day after. Look at the beach erosion that we had. I mean, that is a full-size human being. I mean, that is really impressive erosion. Here's the high tide line. This is at Isle of Palms, courtesy Reggie Fairchild. You can see that. I mean, 2.5 feet, well over the road there. And getting into Charleston Harbor, I mean, 9.86 feet, highest non-tropical tide on record. You know, fourth highest on record. Period. We've never done that. You know, it's kind of wild, man. I just you know, you go into this as like, yeah, this is. I can name a ton of named storms over the years that have not had an impact like this one did.
Yeah, I mean, I brought this up and I was gonna try to pull up the Myrtle Beach data there for the tides, but I brought this up in our meeting, our news meeting the day after, and I said, this surpassed any impacts Adelia had on us this year. I mean, it by far blew Adelia out of the water.
Oh yeah,
this was way more impactful than what we saw with that, and that was the only tropical system we saw this year. But I mean, it was pretty bad, and you hope that you message the right. And we know Charleston, as well as here in the Grand Strand, it's very easy to flood, but still what we saw is crazy.
Yeah.
Just you don't anticipate that. So I'll share the screen here for your show in Charleston. I'm going to share the screen here with Myrtle Beach.
Yeah,
let's see the water level here, and you can see we got up to, I think it was about 9.74, 9.7 there, 9.6.
Yeah,
and this was 2 hours after high tide. So imagine if that storm was 2 hours quicker, coinciding with high tide, you would have seen major issues.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
I mean, that's basically what happened here.
Yeah.
That's the thinking, because, going into it, we knew that we were going to have a high tide. It started at moderate flood stage about 3 days out. And the other thing too is that the extratropical guidance is kind of alarmist. Honestly, it can be very alarmist, and it can be, it can show numbers that are completely out of whack with reality. But everything coincided so perfectly.
Yeah,
we had high tide. We had, the band of rain, which we'll talk about in a second. We had, it looked like a 4-foot tidal anomaly. I mean, I haven't talked 4 foot of surge since Irma, Matthew. I don't think, not even with Matthew. Again, we beat it. It's insane.
It was insane. And for us, I was out in Garden City today. I went to go fly my drone. Right now is a great time if you're like seashells and stuff. Now's the time to go out and search for seashells. There's tons of people doing that, but I was out flying the drone, and I mean, the beach in Garden City, the dunes just took a hammer. I mean, they're just hammered from this, and they were just now recovering from Ian of last year. And it's just like, you build it back up and then you get another storm that tears them right back down. And so, it's just the erosion, especially Garden City, Surfside, down into Lynchfield, Pawleys Island. Myrtle Beach is a little bit more elevated, but even we had the Army engineer or Army Corps of Engineers. They were doing some things earlier this summer, a beach re-nourishment program where they were planting new sea oats and seagrass and fencing, and even part of that was damaged from this event. So it was just bad, and that was just one of the things. The beach erosion and the coastal flooding, and then like you said, the flooding aspect. My gosh.
I'll tell you, man. I'll tell you. We actually, horribly tragically, we had a fatality here.
I heard that.
Yeah, we had someone, get trapped in her car when floodwaters were coming up, flash flood warnings were out, things like that. But man, like it kind of, drives that point home about that. We have a great comment from YouTube from Jeremy Wilson here saying, I haven't seen the rain at my house like that since the 1,000-year flood. And I'll tell you what, when I saw this radar loop begin to get going here, let me fire this up. When I saw this radar loop get going, that brought back some very unpleasant memories.
2015. That's immediately what I thought.
Exactly. Very unpleasant memories. Let's take a look at we'll take a look at it from what you saw from the Wilmington radar. And again, Georgetown, they had a flash flood emergency. They had
14 inches of rain.
14 inches of rain. We can watch the storm total. This was the storm total rainfall as it grew. When you start getting into the whites and the blacks on my color scale, that's 10, 15 inches. This is from the Weather Service in Charleston. But look at the rain totals in the corner there. 14.59, 14.77. There was a station that had 16 inches of rain.
Yeah.
We don't know how good that. I mean, we're not sure how reliable that measurement is. But I mean, that's just right.
And I hate saying this, but thankfully we were in a drought going into this, or else it would have been even worse. I know a lot of this heavy rain, like we had on Sunday, it kind of just runs off, but at least some of that rain was able to soak in. Imagine if it was totally saturated. I mean,
if it had been in August,
yeah, it would have been. It would have been even worse.
Yeah, it was nutty. I mean, I'm gonna take this. Let me. I'm kind of clicking a lot of buttons right now, folks. So but take this. I'm gonna take this full again. This was a couple of the creeks around This is the Santee River at McClellanville. It hit a new record level. All right, so this was during that rain, you could see that record level there, 7.83 feet. The Skrine Creek near McClellanville almost it came up a hundredth of a foot short of setting a new record there, just with all of the rain that fell. So, I mean, imagine having to deal with that and just I'm glad a lot of that rain fell over marsh.
Yes. Yeah. That's a good point, because we were talking earlier this week at the station. Imagine if this was a classic hurricane setup, and not only did you get 8, 10, 12 inches coastal, but you also got that up in the headwaters, and that had to still flow down. I'm glad places like Lumberton and Columbia and places like that didn't get the 8 to 10 or 12 inches, or else it, again, would have been worse. We saw a lot of terrible impacts, but we can also say it could have been worse, with the rain and the surge.
Yeah, I mean, it's Scotty, it is a that's weird. Sorry about that. It was just one of those things that, it's a good thing there wasn't much wraparound moisture. Yeah. It was very good to see the rain cut off when it did. That's where the extra tropical part of this saved us. It just absolutely just spun up. The other thing too is that, this thing set December low pressure records all the way up and down the eastern seaboard.
Yeah, I think 992 was here in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, we got to 992 here in Charleston. That beat a record that had been in place since 1942.
And for those who may not know all about the pressure is how strong the storm gets. And I mean, in a 992, what is that, Jared? A strong tropical storm?
Yeah.
Maybe Cat 1,
Depending.
Yeah. And again, we're December, and that's also what creates those stronger winds and things. So, It's just, I know we had a wind gust in Florence, South Carolina. That's about 90 minutes inland of Myrtle Beach, 66 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And so those strong winds were able to get back into the western or into the central part of the state. So it's widespread impacts, widespread.
Yeah, the Weather Service in Charleston put together this this look here at the peak wind gusts here. You see plenty 40s here. We had 50 at Isle of Palms, 50, maybe even around 60 possibly around Bulls Bay here, kind of coinciding with where that heavy rain band set up. 51 miles an hour at Savannah, Georgia. I mean, it was it was a very windy storm. That, and for those of you playing along at home, tropical storm classified winds are 39 miles an hour and higher. So sustained winds, that is. So, I mean, it was windy. And then there was the tornado threat. Now, we had one tornado warning in my neck of the woods that didn't really, it didn't, if there was something, it may have just been over marsh, was never confirmed, was never verified, but you were not so lucky.
Yeah, no, not at all. So, man, where do we start?
Let me give you your screen, by the way. I know that you have some photos, and I tried to share my screen. It is not working. So
yes. Let's start with the morning that I had. I work weekend morning, so I went 4:30, doing the forecast, all that. I worked till 1, and then our two of our meteorologists came in to relieve me, and obviously a weather geek that I am, I'm not just going to go home and be like, all right, weather's done with. So I was like, well, while you guys do this, I'm going to go out and get some footage so we can use it in our newscast and stuff. So I left the station at 1 o'clock. 12 minutes later is when the tornado warning occurred. And as I was driving out to get the first footage, I stopped. We have a lot of these retention ponds in Myrtle Beach. Obviously, if you've been here recently, they're constantly building, and you have to have these retention ponds for water runoff and all that such. There was white caps in those things. I was like, well, that's some good video. And as soon as I get out, I've got my rain jacket on, rain pants all, just like this, just strong, like very strong gust of wind, like hits me in the face. And I look and I see these signs just tumbling in the air. And I'm like, that was really strong. I was like, so I get back in and I pull up radar scope and I was like, wait, that's a rotation couplet. And not only is that a rotation couplet, but that's just what moved over me. And the rotation couplet's showing up at where I live. So instead of going to the beach, we go back. I want to make sure my place is safe and my dog's safe. As you can see her behind me. And my patio had been hit, but the people across the street, they had lost fences, they had lost roofs, shingles. Like it was pretty bad. So let me screen share some of the damage that we saw here in Myrtle Beach from this. Now, this was EF1 tornado with max winds of 95 miles per hour. Let me see it. This is the first one. So this is the old Waccamaw Mall. If you've ever been to Myrtle Beach and you come in on 501, this is one of the first parts that you see as you're crossing or getting ready to cross over the waterway. And it used to be the Hard Rock amusement park here. Well, this is the roof area, kind of the signage area being blown off the mall. Pretty significant wind to do that. Then you look into this same parking lot, and there's this trailer that's blown over, and you're like, man, that's some strong wind. Then you go behind this, and there's a transfer truck, 18-wheeler blown over. I've only seen this, Jared. I don't know about you, but I've only seen this like out in the Midwest. So I'm like, that's crazy. Yeah. Like,
oh goodness.
So then you go, like, there's UPS and FedEx facility back there that connects with the airport. You can see these UPS trailers knocked over. There's another trailer knocked over, UPS. And then this is in the community that's right across from my street. You can kind of just see the shingles and the siding and stuff just like laying in the yards. These poles bent over. This is what my road looked like. You had not only the heavy rain, but you had just like the tops of these trees just like twisted out all over the road. Just amazing. You can see cars driving through flooded roadways. This was because the ditch areas were overflowed. All the storm drainage areas overflowed with the rain. And so, we always tell people don't drive through flooded roadways, but sometimes they don't listen. And then, so we got that. And then we went back to Merle's Inlet. Now, this is one of those famous cross pictures. If you've ever been on social media, you've probably seen this. Well, normally behind this is what they call Goat Island, where you can they used to have goats out there.
Right.
And this is kind of a marshy area. Well, you can see, Jared, it looks like you're looking out over the ocean. That's how high the water was. In fact,
Yeah.
if I was to show you where the water is, it's right below the seawall here. I mean,
Oh yeah.
maybe
That's oceanfront.
maybe 2 inches from it, cresting over the seawall here. I've seen it full during high tide, but nothing like this. And there you can see some of this is going out to Myrtle's Inlet. Obviously, the roads are closed here. So you can just see here's a perfect example of just the marsh areas just overflowing the roads. And you can just see from that picture how heavy the rain was. And then that was in that fire hose that band that just set up from where you were in Charleston all the way up into Horry County. And it just would not stop raining at all. So, and you can just see, this is something that, again, that you would see in a hurricane or a tropical system. You wouldn't expect to see this in December. And obviously there's, the roads being shut down. But yeah, that was kind of some of the stuff there. So again, to kind of recap everything is, it was an EF1 tornado, max winds of 95 miles per hour. They did decide, it started in the Socastee area where my apartment is, where that neighborhood went through Socastee, went through Fantasy Harbor, which you just saw where the trailers were blown over. And then as it crossed 501, that's the River Oaks, Carolina Forest. And it started, I guess, to kind of just occlude out, and it just continued to push a big old line of straight line winds as tornadoes do. And then eventually the circulation stopped. But, I will see if I can find the radar circulation signature here on my Facebook page in just a second, and I'll show it to you because it was pretty pronounced. Like you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's definitely a tornado." You don't need to see much from that. So let me share that right quick.
Yeah. Did it produce a debris signature?
It did. Yes.
Yeah.
It did. So
easier to come about these times at this time of year too, because of it's fall,
right?
And there's just more debris to pick up. I'm convinced, honestly, that some of the flooding was so bad downtown because the fall, all of the leaves and everything had clogged the storm drains. I'm convinced that that's what took it so long to get drained. But yeah, I mean, that's as clear as day.
Yeah, I mean, and there, I don't know if you guys can see it, but that little icon's where I live, and so you imagine looking, you're like, oh crap, and so this continued, and here you can kind of see Fantasy Harbor, and then there's Carolina Forest. That's where it kind of just blew out into more straight line winds. But I think the path was 3 miles, 3 to 4 miles, something like that. But this is a very populated area, so unfortunately, a lot of homes did get damaged, but thankfully no injuries reported. So that was some good news there.
Yeah, that's really good news. That tornado threat wasn't going to go terribly far inland, but until you get in North Carolina, and really North Carolina, they had one tornado warning, and then they issued the tornado watch, and then I don't think another warning came out because that's exactly how they. But that's good because we all know how Eastern North Carolina is just tornado alley.
That's right.
And we're very fortunate that we didn't have quite the tornado impacts there that, quite frankly, we probably should have had.
Yeah, because it was more like lining up with the heating of the day up in North Carolina. It just didn't, thankfully for them, didn't produce, but just a wild day, and you ask yourself, is this going to be the pattern as we go throughout winter?
Yeah.
Hopefully not to this extent, but I think it's possible, Jared. Let me know, but I think it's possible we see a couple more heavier rain events this winter. With the setup that we have.
Can I please have a complete atmospheric column full of sub 32 air? That's what I want. Sub-zero C air. Can I please have that? Imagine how much snow that would have been. That would have been a lot of fun.
Speaking of snow, isn't this the 1989? We're closing in on the
this is the anniversary.
The big coastal snowstorm.
Yep, absolutely. Before we get to that, this is a great question that came in over X from Sturble YNWA. Other than the fact that hurricane season was over, why wasn't this called a tropical storm? That's a great question. So I think there's two parts to this. Scotty, if you want to jump in You know, I think this is I think there's a two-part answer to this.
Yeah, it was a cold core storm.
Yeah.
This, now we're seeing, when we do the recap of hurricane season of last year, you seen that we had a system in January of of this year. I mean,
yeah.
So I think it was the cold core storm, in my opinion, that kind of kept it non-tropical.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, is that it did have fronts attached. It was driven by, air mass clashes as opposed to being a kind of a standalone storm that was fed by the water. Because again, 50s and 60s, where that low tracked. I mean, it tracked right over the shelf waters. It would be too cold to sustain a self-sustaining tropical system. It needed, it needed those those baroclinic interactions, so to speak, to make that happen. But the second part too, Scotty, to your point, hurricane season is, the hurricane season, June 1st, November 30th is over. But we have had postseason storms. We've had preseason storms. They'll name them the same. It doesn't matter. But meteorologically speaking, this was not that. But impact speaking, I don't know how you could tell a difference.
I don't either. And I will say this, you know this as well, Jared. They had hurricane hunters in that system.
They did. Mm-hmm. Yep. They'll send the hurricane hunters in, one, practice. Two, it's great data. It's fantastic information. Storms don't, just because it's a cold core storm doesn't mean it's not interesting. Doesn't mean there's nothing that we can't learn from it.
And so with the hurricane hunters in there, I feel like if this had tropical characteristics, flying the hurricane hunters in there, they would have named it, or at least a subtropical, whatever. You get into those definitions and stuff. But the impacts were the same. Yeah. And it's all about impacts. I mean, that's, it doesn't matter. We say it with tornadoes and straight line winds. If wind is heavy enough or strong enough, it's going to do damage. No matter if it's a tornado or straight line winds, you need to treat it the same. And with this, you need to treat the impacts the same. For the most part, I think everybody did. It's unfortunate, like you said, we had some fatality there in the Charleston area.
Yeah, shame. One's too many,
Yeah.
And, that's, obviously it's going to, it'll hope, it'll prompt reflection from all of us. It's like, hey, okay. It's like, did we miss someone?
Yes, while we continue to try to, we're always continuously working on the craft of trying to find that effective way to communicate to every single person.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it was, one of those where, you see it coming, days in advance, and what's the last thing you want to do? Last thing you want to say, oh, look, this could be really bad. And then get hassled on social media for it because, oh, you're hyping, you're fear mongering, you're scaring people. I've gotten that one before.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, maybe we weren't scaring people enough. I mean, I can't help but shake that. Just that whole vibe. But it was something else. I hope to not do it again, this year or ever, really. But it's but at the end of the day, it was rough. It was gnarly, and I think it was and I think it served as a reminder that it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether it has a name. Doesn't matter the meteorological makeup of it. It's the impacts are the same. It's the same wind that's pushing the same water inland 4 feet. Is 4 feet of surge. It's all the same there. So but let's talk some happier things.
Yes, let's do that.
So, obviously Christmas is coming up, and a lot of you guys probably be traveling, probably start tomorrow. And Scotty, what's it looking like in your neck of the woods? I mean, it seems pretty sane here, at least leaving, coming back.
Yeah, for the Grand Strand, we have been just like you guys. It's been pretty chilly around here. We've had some frosty mornings over the last few mornings. You look out and you're like, man, it looks like it snowed out there. So thankfully, though, with that high pressure starting to move off the coast, it's going to bring back a little bit warmer temperatures. So for your Friday into the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, it looks like temperatures going to be in the 60s with partly cloudy skies. And most of the day on Monday, Christmas Day, looks to be okay. As we get into the afternoon, evening hours, it looks like the rain chances start to really develop. And honestly, Tuesday kind of looks like a wet day across the area with some rainfall, but at least mild. Not a cold rain, at least. And then as you get into next week, it seems to stay mild for a few days. So we'll see how things play out after that. But if you are traveling, Christmas Day into the day after Christmas looks to be pretty wet in this area.
Yeah, and down here in the Low Country, down here, in southern South Carolina, southeast South Carolina, pretty much the same situation. Just peeking, was peeking at some models earlier, and yeah, it's gonna be rainy, maybe a little windy, certainly possible. We're gonna be caught between high pressure over New England and then low pressure developing, kicking out into the Midwest. But
that is one thing I've noticed since living here now at the coast, Jared. It's windy all the time.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, you have a lot less friction you got to deal with.
Yeah.
But yeah, that rain is gonna, that again, that rain is gonna move up. Is gonna be a rain event for everybody. It looks like maybe I haven't dug in too much into the mountains. I don't know how much you've taken a peek at it, but
yeah, I was. Looks like
not really.
Again, it looks like Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, some rainfall. And they could get a little northwest flow snow after that, the days after, like Thursday into Friday. It looks like a little fetch of lake effect moisture may try to affect from Thursday night into Friday. So we'll see how that is. I know they've had a few decent snowfall events lately, and that's good for the ski slopes as they go into the holiday season. But I'm looking right now, besides that little northwest flow, nothing really stands out until you get into like the first week of January. So looks pretty calm after the rain after Christmas.
Yep. Yeah. And same for the mild down here. It's going to be kind of a mild home stretch here. Whether it's a mild finish, remains to be seen. But
that's the big talk, isn't it, on social media about how going into January we could definitely see a pattern flip.
Yeah. Well,
it is January.
Give me all the whole column under 32. None of this. Everything is 32 except right near the surface, so it's going to freeze.
If you're watching, don't hold me to this, but I just got a feeling sometime in January. I've just got a feeling.
Oh, Scotty's got a feeling.
When's the last time? What was that last event for y'all in Charleston, Jared? Was it
2018?
Yeah,
in 2018. Yeah,
it's about that time It's about that time, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't see enough cold air though.
Not right now.
Nope, not right now. But so it goes. But yeah, everybody, want to take a second here to, we're going to have one more show to close out. We have a great, next week, we're going to have a great conversation with Jim Cantori and Mike Bettis, and Ken Graham joins in on the fun. Ken Graham, the director of the National Weather Service, is going to join in on the fun with that as well. And a nice conversation we had a few weeks ago at our Red Cross Telethon. We're going to be airing that for you right here in the Carolina Weather Group here next week. This should be, unless barring some sort of freak snowstorm or something like that, or anything like that. I think this is going to be kind of our last live, at least until Christmas.
Yes.
So, from the Carolina Weather Group family, all of us, Scotty, me, James, Shay, Peter,
Frank,
everybody, all the people, have a very Merry Christmas. Be safe. And thank you for letting us onto your phones, into your homes. Once again this year, we can't do it without you guys. Let's just be honest. It's a privilege, Scotty. It truly is a privilege to.
It is, and it's hard to believe that we've been doing this for so many years too. It's like crazy.
Isn't it going to be 10 years next year?
Next year is the 10-year anniversary.
Next year is the 10-year anniversary.
Yeah. Insane to think of. But I echo everything Jared said. We appreciate you guys, or you guys bringing us into your homes and those car rides, and maybe just if you're walking outside to enjoy the fresh air. We appreciate you tuning in, and always love the support you guys give us. And we again extend those Merry Christmases and hopefully a great start to 2024. And maybe we all get outside and dance enough, maybe we can get a snowfall for everybody.
Maybe fewer Chinese spy balloons.
Yeah, man, we've had it all this year, haven't we?
We have had it almost all. Didn't quite get iced. Didn't. So I'm thankful for that. I mean, again, keep the freezing rain away from me. But
nobody likes the ice.
No, nobody likes freezing rain. No, nobody does. But anyway, on behalf of everybody on the Carolina Weather Group, again, thank you so much for another wonderful and wacky year of Carolina weather. And be sure to tune in next week for a conversation with some just heavyweight titans of weather. It was some of the best conversation I've seen in a long time. These guys are,
Cantori, yes,
Graham. I mean, Bill Murray from Weather Brains is there. It's you're just gonna have to watch this. It was absolutely fantastic. So, from all of us here across the Carolinas and out to you in YouTube land or X land or wherever it is you might be, thank you so much for watching. Have a safe and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will see you next
year.
Cheers. And I got to roll the end. The problem is when they move everything. So we're gonna roll the credits. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.